Here in Australia, it's been a day of volatility on the share market, which at one point plunged by more than 5%. It did close up, though, on rumours that the US Federal Reserve is about to throw another massive monetary stimulus at the American economy. The wild ride means high stress for millions of Australians whose retirement savings are invested in the share markets. Here's Stephen Long.
When Paul Keating set up the superannuation system, the promise was it would give workers security and dignity in retirement. But 2 decades on, it's failing. Over the past 11 years, the average return across the super system has been about 3.2% a year, roughly the same as the inflation rate over that time. So workers' retirement savings have gone nowhere. And it's not just a numbers story. We've shifted the risk from governments and business to workers, and that means real pain for real people.
It's very stressful, mate, especially at my age. You know, I'm almost 65. I was on the verge of retiring. My sort of super seems to be just disappearing in front of my eyes.
It's tough work that takes a toll, but after decades of hard yakka, for rigger and crane driver John Burns, retirement is still out of reach. The financial turmoil is having a big impact on him and other older workers at this Sydney building site.
Keep the dust down, the dust is rising, it's going out in the street.
I started work when I was 14. I'm 64, I'll be 65 in a couple of weeks. I always had this rough idea in my head that 65, that was it, that was the cut-off point.
Well, it's heartbreaking. Heartbreaking, yeah, that's the right word, yeah.
It's a lifetime of work and your savings.
Going down the drain, yeah. It's exactly what's happening. Especially when you think the super would be safe, but it's not safe.
Now, instead of relaxing after a long day at the worksite, John Burns has become an unlikely consumer of business news. He comes home to anxiously check the financial markets.
Jesus, did I mark? All of a sudden, all this money's just disappearing. One day you were worth X amount, the next 6 months later you're worth an astounding, and you can't understand it. I mean, we're babes in the woods. We're giving our life savings to people to play with, and you got to worry about their expertise, you know. And where's the accountability?
He's not alone in asking whether it makes sense to have workers' retirement savings at the mercy of the market.
We exposed a generation of working people to financial markets with the promise of high returns and a better standard of living in retirement, and that prospect now looks very bleak for most people.
With superannuation being hit and hit hard, people are having to go back to work. I mean, the price of, petrol and price of groceries, that type of thing, they're already concerned about, but taking a hit to their super is massive.
Matt Higgins runs a job agency in Melbourne for mature age workers. He's seen a 30% spike in inquiries as the volatile markets wipe out retirement savings.
It's hard when you're getting emails from people saying, I'm really struggling, I really need a job, please can you help me? And the number of those type of emails increases significantly. So, it's really difficult. We do what we can.
That's right. Good girl. Yeah.
On the Gold Coast, 78-year-old Barry Ritchie and his wife Peggy were hoping for carefree years with children and grandchildren.
Our whole aim in life had been to build up enough money that we weren't going to be dependent on government. We could do what we wanted to do and survive that way. And even through 2008, 2009, we felt the same thing. We could manage that because we could get enough recovery to survive. That changed yesterday, the day before.
After proudly managing their own super, they're being forced onto the pension.
Now we're caught, yes. So we don't now have enough money for us to manage through the risks still ahead of us, particularly the likelihood of major health costs and those sorts of things.
The pain and anxiety is shared by millions on compulsory super, who made no choice to take the risk.
We shifted a huge amount of risk for financing retirement onto ordinary working people, away from companies that used to have defined benefit plans and away from the government, because increasingly it's expected that superannuation will replace the age pension, or at least it'll take a lot of the cost out of the system.
We got no power, we got no say, and it's very, very frustrating, you know. I mean, I look at the markets and I say, oh Jesus, here we go again. There's another several thousand, whatever, gone out of my super. And what can you do about it? Put the money under the bed.